What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Khabib talks Islam Makhachev's future as champion. When Islam Makhachev defeated Charles Oliveira to become the lightweight champion, it marked the beginning of a new era in the 155-pound division. As the newly crowned champion, Makhachev's reign also continued the legacy of Khabib Nurmagomedov's father, Abdul Manap. With Khabib Nurmagomedov and Javier Mendez handling coaching duties for Makhachev, it seemed as though he's poised to reign over the division for the foreseeable future. Despite his longtime friend's dominance thus far, Khabib believes that Makhachev's reign won't last forever. He spoke during an interview with a Russian MMA news outlet. "I think he needs at least 5, maybe 6. That would be ideal. 6 defenses. That's 6 fights and 3 years. Then it's possible that the sport leaves him because nobody can stay on top forever. The way the Almighty created a man, he first becomes strong, then weak. He's young, then he's old. Knowing that, the goal is 5 or 6 defenses." With Makhachev's first title defense coming up in February, Khabib's plan puts him at 2 fights a year for the next 3 years. The topic of longevity is one Khabib has received criticism for in recent years when he shot down talks of why Jose Aldo wasn't having a career resurgence. Many thought he was being unfair. Despite that, the Eagle maintained that fighters cannot have 2 peaks. With that in mind, how do you see the next few years playing out for Islam Makhachev? Will he remain atop the 155-pound division for the next 3 years, or will he be dethroned? Give us your predictions below. Ariel Helwani fires back at Paddy Pimblett following UFC 282 win. After Paddy Pimblett's hand was raised following a controversial win over Jared Gordon at UFC 282, he immediately used his post-fight Octagon interview with Joe Rogan to send a shot at bitter rival Ariel Helwani. The message was received loud and clear, with Helwani firing back during a recent episode of the MMA Hour. Helwani seemed to take particular offense to the fact that Pimblett accused him of lying about the situation. Leading up to his fight with Gordon, Pimblett said that he and his manager were going to pull the receipts on Helwani after the fight, something the longtime MMA Journalist of the Year is eager for.
They said they're going to address it after the fight. Oh, I can't wait. What do we want to go? Screen grab for screen grab? What are we going to do? What are you going to address? You're going to continue to make up stuff? Like I asked you to drop this, like I reached out to you for all the, like, can't wait. I invite it. Let's do it. You do it on your channel. I'll do it on my channel, which I don't get paid extra for any views.
As he reminded viewers, he pulled the receipts and read the conversation between he and Pimblett, as well as the conversation between him and Pimblett's manager. While explaining how Pimblett is trying to paint himself as the victim, Helwani pointed out that he was the one stabbed in the back after Pimblett fired shots at him on his own podcast. Helwani even went as far as to produce an audio message from Pimblett that reportedly backed up his claims that the baddie came to him for an interview. In response, Pimblett claimed that the voice memo in question was a request to hang out, not a request for an interview. Helwani went on to point out that Pimblett's manager then went on to request that he put together a budget from BT Sports, proving his point that Pimblett and his manager were seeking payment for an interview. With the public feud only continuing to get messier, it'll be interesting to see how things continue to play out. Stay tuned for an inevitable response from Pimblett. Is Francis Ngannou headed to free agency? Ever since Francis Ngannou defeated Ciryl Gane to unify the heavyweight championship earlier this year, there's been speculation as to his future with the UFC. As the champion revealed after the fight, his agent had been contacted by the UFC prior to the bout, who informed Team Ngannou that they were in breach of contract after the champion's agent allegedly spoke with Jake Paul's business partner about Ngannou boxing. The way the Predator saw things, the UFC was trying to throw him off his game. At the time, the champion explained that fighters are considered independent contractors to the UFC. Despite that, they're unable to fight elsewhere during that time. As a result, he wanted to fight for fighters to have the ability to be free, as independent contractors should. Throughout all of that, reports emerged that the champion would fight Jon Jones when he was able to return. Initially, the hope was that the fight would take place at the end of the year, but Ngannou's ongoing rehab from surgery progressing slowly pushed the timeline for the fight back. Reports have since emerged that the UFC is planning for a heavyweight title fight between Ngannou and Jones in 2023, giving many hope that the champion and the UFC had worked past their differences. Although talks have been progressing, a report emerged from John Nash revealing the champion's clause that kicked in when Ngannou beat Gane could have expired, meaning the champion could already be a free agent. With so much uncertainty surrounding the situation, some people have pointed to a recent tweet from Ngannou regarding his Road to Recovery video series as evidence that he could be preparing to move on from the UFC. In the video, Ngannou repeatedly emphasized that his return would mark a new chapter for him. Do you think he means his new chapter post-surgery, or was the new chapter in reference about fighting in another organization? Give us your thoughts below. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Israel Adesanya's coach, Eugene Bareman, dismisses Khamzat Chimaev. After Israel Adesanya was defeated by Alex Pereira in the main event of UFC 281, talk immediately shifted to the inevitable rematch between the pair, with UFC President Dana White confirming at the post-fight press conference that Adesanya's activity and dominance over the years warranted an immediate rematch. Many wondered how a rematch between Adesanya and Pereira would play out, with Pereira being 3-0 over Adesanya in two different combat sports. Some questioned whether the last stylebender has what it takes to actually beat the Brazilian, or if Pereira was simply his kryptonite like he had been to Robert Whittaker. Adesanya's head coach, Eugene Bareman, spoke about the inevitable rematch between the two men. The way he sees things, a rematch is the biggest fight at 185 pounds, despite Khamzat Chimaev waiting in the wings to make his highly anticipated return.
Yeah, for sure. And I haven't seen the numbers on the last fight, but I'm sure they're very, very good. I think in the middleweight division, I still think that's the biggest fight. Khamzat's a rising star, but he's literally done nothing at middleweight, so he hasn't established himself. You're talking about two guys at the top of the food chain in terms of their status in combat sports. Khamzat's a rising star. Like he's a massive rising star, but he's not in the position of these two guys.
As Bareman went on to explain, Chimaev still needs to work his way up the middleweight rankings before being inserted into a potential title shot. Although he's been linked to a welterweight #1 contender fight, Bareman doesn't think Chimaev has done enough to warrant talk of a 185-pound title fight. With a rematch between Adesanya and Pereira on the horizon, how do you see things playing out when the two men step in the octagon once again? And now for our breaking news story of the day. Douglas Crosby under review after controversial Bellator scorecard. Judge Douglas Crosby has come under fire as of late for two controversial scorecards this past weekend. Crosby kicked things off with a 50-45 scorecard in favor of Danny Sabatello in the Bellator 289 main event, a stark contrast from the 48-47 scorecards in favor of his opponent. After that, Crosby controversially scored the Paddy Pimblett vs. Jared Gordon fight in favor of Pimblett, who won via unanimous decision. After many criticized the scoring, including UFC bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling, who called the 50-45 scorecard one of the worst he's seen in recent memory, it was revealed that Crosby was being put under review according to ABC president and head of the Mohegan Tribe Commission, Mike Mazzulli. While addressing the, quote, very serious situation, he revealed he planned to sit down with all three judges to go over the fight. After reviewing the fight, 3 rounds of the 5 rounds were extremely close, and the other 2 were marginally close rounds. One judge had Sabatello winning all 5 rounds, which is controversial, but ultimately Stotts won the decision, which is the correct result. In an effort to make this a learning moment, I've informed all 3 judges that we will be reviewing the fight together. According to reports, if the Mohegan Tribe Commission does decide to sanction Crosby, like they have with other judges who have shown questionable decision-making in the past, the news wouldn't be made public. Although Sabatello was also confused at how one judge scored at 50-45 in his favor, while the others had him losing a close fight, he remained adamant that he thought he won the bout. How did you score the Sabatello-Stotts fight? And do you think there should be sanctions brought upon Crosby for his questionable judging? Give us your thoughts in the comments below. Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to see more videos just like this. See you next time.